Hey, Flames families. Welcome to Flame Keepers, a podcast from UIC's new student and family programs that supports the parents and families of UIC students. I'm your host, Derek Robert Fuchs, Associate Director for Family and Transition Programs. And on today's episode, we are joined by my good friend, Lori Marshall, to discuss all things about getting involved with fraternity and sorority life. We have a vibrant fraternity and sorority community here at UIC, and I'm so excited for you all to hear about it. Please give a warm Flame Keepers welcome to the Associate Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life, Lori Marshall. Before we start our conversation, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So, like DR said, my name is L'Oreal Marshall. Everyone calls me Lori. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I have the pleasure of serving as Associate Director for here at UIC Fraternity and Sorority Life. And I've been here at UIC for about 6 years. And my experience in for sorority and fraternity life basically began back in 2004. That's when I was on the campus of Alabama A&M University, which is a HBCU, Go Bulldogs. And I saw all of the NPHC organizations doing their thing.
And what does NPHC stand for our listeners who might not be as familiar with some of the lingo?
NPHC is the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which is our historically African-American based fraternities and sororities. Thank you for saying that, because you're so correct.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I just want our folks to know, just a little bit more, about what we're talking about. And it's really easy for us, especially here, like at UIC. I mean, even UIC acronym, right?
All the time.
And so, I mean, it's just part of our vernacular. And so what I love about this podcast is that, we can say these things, but then, we have an opportunity, to share, with our listeners about, what kind of things, we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So National Pan-Hellenic Council, Alabama A&M University, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Go Bulldogs. So, but Lori, so you've been involved since your undergrad. Mm-hmm. And so, but before we, start talking about, how families can, come in, get some more knowledge about this area, and then start showing their support. How has being in a sorority or still being involved with your sorority, like how has that shaped you today?
I would definitely contribute it to one of the many facets of who the woman I am today and showing up in the different spaces and communities that I serve. Joining my sorority, which is Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, I've been a member now for 16 years, and I've served in several facets, one being notably is the 23rd Centennial Central Region Regional Director, which I led an entire region. And being one of the youngest individuals to do that, it has shaped my life in terms of return and investment. And the return and investment that I've seen is like me sitting in this space right now. I got introduced to higher education and fraternity and sorority life by being a member of a sorority. So I wouldn't even be here if it was not for me being a member. But the networks, the sense of belonging that you can see when you become a member, the community, the friendships, the sisterhood, the brotherhood, the bonds, the service, the scholarships. These individuals go on to be some of the most productive individuals in our world in which we live in today. Some of the most prominent members I can think about right now: Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Michael Jordan, Coretta Scott King, Hattie McDaniel. You have so many members that has contributed to our history. We want to make sure that we bring that back to our world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm super excited. I know we're going to talk about some misconceptions, that maybe center around, this and joining one of these organizations. But before we even, start talking about that, like, what would you like to share with our parents and families, who are listening to this, just about fraternity and sorority life here at UIC? Because, there's so many things that you all do. You are very active. What would our families want to know? Like, what would you share with our families?
The one thing I ain't gonna say one thing. I have a couple of things to say to the families here, okay? At UIC, fraternity and sorority life will bring life back into you as a parent, as a family member, and as a student. Here at UIC, our fraternities and sororities believe in development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, service, scholarship, and of course, those bonds that will never be broken. We believe in bringing our students a wealth of knowledge so they can bring that wealth of knowledge in every arena that they sit in, okay? our fraternity and sorority life community has been around for over 60 years.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a lot of years.
Yes. I mean, like, it's here, and we are here at UIC, and we want you to know that we are here to direct you in any facet of involvement that you want to be in. We have so many sororities and fraternities. Matter of fact, over 30 plus fraternities and sororities here at UIC that you can be involved in. The one thing I want to say for parents and families is to encourage your students, and I encourage you as well, do your research, right? Do your research. I think that is so key because sometimes those misconceptions can out loud the positive things that these organizations are doing in their communities.
Yeah, and just like even I liken this to almost like a job search, right?
Yes,
You're looking
correct.
for a place where you are you're not only compatible, but
Bingo.
like your values
Yes.
align,
Mhm.
like you can see yourself within that organization,
Yes.
and doing things within that organization.
Absolutely.
I know that the fraternity and sorority community, they do a lot of things like, in terms of service and leadership and things like that. And so you all are very, very active. And you all have done some things for families too, right? Like, to help them get more educated about just what it means to be in a fraternity and sorority here
Yes.
at UIC. I think during sorority recruitment, right? You
Yes.
started
So
doing something.
during Panhellenic is typically our traditionally housed sororities. However, here at UIC, we do not have homes for our sororities, right? But however, within formal recruitment, that is the time for us to educate our parents about what their students and what their daughters have signed up for.
Yeah.
All right. We want them to understand from beginning to end what is about to take place. We also want to let them know about our policies and procedures we have taken
Yeah.
place to keep their students safe here
Yeah.
at UIC. And then make sure they know that we are the contact. If they need anything, this is our contact. You can let us know what you need.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think there are just so many questions, especially, if a student is a first year student, maybe they
Yes.
come to orientation and, they come talk to y'all's table and they get really excited and they're like, hey, I'm going to join
I love that.
a fraternity or sorority.
Yep.
And, especially if a family member, is unaffiliated, like, they're like, wait, what? Like,
Exactly.
what is this?
Exactly.
And so
I would be like that too. I'm a mom.
it's
I would if I was unaffiliated. I would be like, wait, well, hold on now.
it's only right to have questions, and not just about getting involved with a fraternity and a sorority, but just
Anything.
anything involving the college experience.
Yes.
It is totally normal to have questions. And families, we're going to talk just about ways that you can start supporting your students, some questions to ask them later on in the podcast. But Lori, you talked a little. You said traditional sororities, and
Yes.
so like I know there's not like an untraditional,
It's
what I mean,
not,
sorority
right?
or fraternity, but like you're talking about, so there's different types of orgs here
Yes.
for students to join. And so would you mind
Yes.
sharing just about some of those?
Yes. So we have 5 different councils here, and our councils are like the governing body of these respective individual organizations. That's the best way that I can
Yeah.
describe it, right?
So thinking like a student government, but
Correct.
for the fraternity and sorority community.
Correct. And so we have the Panhellenic Council, right? And then we also have our GPAC, which is the Greek of Pan American Asian Council. Then we have our MPHC Council, which is our historically African American Council, is the National Panhellenic Council. And then IFC, which is our Interfraternity Council, which is our traditionally housed fraternities, right? And then we also have our LGC, which is the Latino Greek Council. And what I will say is that within all of our councils, all of the 5 that I just stated, they are each unique in its dynamic, but they are so powerful in all of the programming that they produce here at UIC. And when they come together, the phenomenal work that they do as a community is amazing. And so sometimes, and what we say with acronyms, you will typically hear the acronyms, which is CPC, which is Panhellenic Council, right? IFC, I stated that, the Interfraternity. So you'll keep hearing those acronyms more often here at UIC, but we wanted to let you know that these are council-based, right?
Yes. And so seems like, if someone is interested,
Yes.
they can find a way to connect in your community, whether it is,
Yes.
whether it's, a focus of the org, or
Correct.
identity,
Yes.
affiliation. And so, you really are, helping folks find their sense of belonging.
Correct. It's very huge here at UIC because we are, one of the top institutions here in the Chicagoland area. We're tier 1 research, and we're right here steps away from downtown.
It's literally right out the window right
You can
here.
see it. So we want to make sure that you do find a place, a home away from home. Even if you are a commuter center, we still want you to find your
Yeah.
home here at UIC.
Yeah, everyone needs to feel like they belong,
Correct.
and especially during the college years.
Correct. I always let students know, especially at orientation when I see them with their parents right there, I let them know is that it is so imperative for you to get involved in your freshman year. That is one thing that I regret, is that I got involved in my junior year. And by then it was time to go. So when you identify what you would like to possibly do during your time as a freshman, do it. I encourage you, I empower you to do it, but I also empower you to do it to be your authentic selves, right? That authenticity is what's going to help you with that sense of belonging.
Yeah, find the thing that, that you're interested in.
Yes.
And so whether it is a fraternity or sorority, or whether there is a club or org, that really is about, your interest, there
Yes.
is something for students here, and families, really encourage your students to find those things, because, there is research, and I think we've talked about this on the
Indeed.
podcast. Like we've talked about this, to where, students who are both academically engaged while socially engaged, or
Ding, ding, ding.
co-curricularly
Yes.
engaged, as we say, they're going to have a much more positive college experience. And that's going to
Without a
reflect
doubt.
in a lot of ways.
Without
That's
a
going to
doubt.
reflect, like, firstly, I think in their demeanor.
Correct.
They're going to be, a little more excited about, waking up, maybe walk into the train
No,
at
you're
like,
right.
8:30 in the morning. They're going to be excited to get to campus, but it'll also reflect in their grades.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And your fraternity and sorority community, scholarship is a big pillar for you
It's
all.
a huge pillar. That's the number one thing. We want you to graduate.
Yeah.
We want you to go out and be productive citizens. So we want you to graduate. And within that graduation, we also provide funding. These organizations have different scholarships for you to apply for to help you with your college and post-college opportunities.
Yeah. And I can't speak, for every org, within the fraternity and sorority community here, but I know that some orgs have mandatory study hours, especially if
They
you are
do.
a new member.
They
like
do.
it is like you have to come to X amount of study hours
You're
to
absolutely
to make
correct.
sure that your scholarship, is top priority.
Yes. And within our office, we check grades. We want to make sure you're maintaining that 2.5 GPA to stay in our community. And even with how you said within the organizations, every organization has its GPA
I
requirement.
was 2.5 is that's the FSL.
That's the FSL realm,
standard. But I
right?
mean, different orgs,
They could be higher.
you could have to have a 3.0,
Correct.
like, things like that.
Mhm,
Okay.
Yep. And I've seen it. I've seen the 2.75 and I've also seen the 3.0, right? And within those organizations, they will let you know if you don't maintain the standard, we're going to put you on an academic, possibly probation, or how can we assist you within our study hours, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure that they are elevating you as a member, but first as a student.
I think this is a really good time to maybe segue into just some misconceptions.
Oh,
You know what I mean? I know
yes.
you and I wanted to talk about this a little bit, but
That's exciting.
we're talking about, there might be a misconception around the academic components where it's like,
Partying too much.
Yeah, exactly. All party, no study. And that's clearly not the
Yes,
case. And
yes.
so, but what are some other misconceptions that you see kind of float around, that might be in our families' minds as they're listening to
Yes.
this? Like, and how can we, dispel some of those?
Yes, I love that, DR, and I'm glad we wanted to bring this up and bring it to the forefront because we want to let you know is that risk management is everywhere,
Yes.
right? Everything is a risk. However, but within fraternity and sorority life, the specific risk is that we see is hazing. That's one of probably like the top ones that we hear about is hazing. 2 would be alcohol and drugs. And then 3 would be sexual misconduct, right? And however, here at UIC specifically is that we have policies and procedures in place to combat those issues, right? We are a non-hazing campus. We do not believe in drugs and alcohol here at UIC. We do not believe in sexual misconduct in UIC, right? And that's in any institution. But also I want to say is that everything that I just stated is a law, not only a state law, but also a federal law, right? And I think that's important for us to understand. And we combat that by training our new members, by training our community, by conducting one-on-one meetings, right? But also making sure they are abreast of these policies and procedures that we have in place. What I will say is with parents and families, when you know that your student is actually interested and they actually go through the membership process, understand that nothing is a secret. Absolutely nothing is a secret. They have the autonomy to let you know what they are going through, right? And if you sense that they are keeping a secret, that might mean something is going on because they're supposed to let you know what is going on from start to finish. And if your student is under 18, every fraternity and sorority will have you sign off on documents that states we're a non-hazing organization. We don't believe in alcohol. We don't believe in sexual misconduct. So I want you to understand that because I empower you to always talk to your students, no matter what, but especially if they are joining a fraternity or sorority.
Yeah. Students, can report, but can outside parties report? So like, if, a family member, suspects, maybe some risk is being, mismanaged, like,
Yes.
or if they are concerned about something, so they can email or reach out to, you all as well. Correct?
Yes, absolutely, DR. UIC, we have incident reports that is housed under the Office of Dean of Students. And so anyone has the autonomy to submit a report, whether it be anonymous or you want to let them know who you are, right? And it's links that are on our website, UIC FSL website, as well as UIC Dean of Students website. And you can easily click on at any time and fill your report out 24/7. It is no deadline. But what I will say, the sooner the better, right? Because when you know something, we want you to let us know immediately.
Yeah. And would you say that, even, there's no such thing as an underreaction,
Correct.
in these situations. Like if it is, if a family member or, someone thinks that, this is serious enough, like to report it,
Absolutely.
like, don't hesitate and do it.
Correct. Absolutely. Because that hesitation could be a possible something could be going on, right? We do not want you to hesitate. We want you to let us know immediately because our goal is to keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Well, it seems like you all care for your community. Like there's a,
Absolutely.
what I mean? A misconception might be that they're out here doing the most, but there is a lot of care from,
really
from
is.
you and the rest of your staff, to ensure that the community is safe and everyone is feeling like they can connect and have a positive experience.
Yep. And I think that's what I'm so glad that you see that, DR.
Oh, yeah.
DR is a part of the FSL community. So, and I'm sorry, FSL stands for Fraternity and Sorority Life, right? So I think that's what you said is that we care about our community. We want to uplift our community and we love on our community. We love our students. And I mean, like, you love your students. Everybody loves us. UIC, we genuinely care and we want the best for our students. I think what's so great for us is that our students come back.
Yeah.
And they see us and they talk so proudly about us. And that makes you feel like you really did something right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We love our students here at UIC and we also love their families and support systems. So.
Because without the parents and the families, they wouldn't be here. So thank you for your time, your patience, your care to get them to this point, to being productive individuals and finding who they are in a college setting.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
That is so phenomenal. Wow. Thanks, Lori. And so, Lori, we're talking about families, we're gassing them up a bit because we love them, but like, let's go back to, orientation and, a student, comes back home after being on campus, and having a great time. And yes, very much so. And they tell their family that, hey, I think I want to join a fraternity or
Uh-huh.
sorority. And so, but like, what are some questions, that families can
Yeah.
ask their student, or how can they approach, this conversation with their student to
Mhm.
eliminate, any assumptions, and I think
Correct.
it's good to have questions, but, like, I
Yes.
mean, addressing, our assumptions, our biases,
Mhm. Mhm.
going into these conversations,
Mhm.
so how can families approach this conversation?
Yeah, I think the conversation should be just a regular, comfortable, lighthearted conversation, right?
Mhm.
With your student and the student as well with your parent, right? But however, when you hear that they want to join, which could be probably take it back, or some parents, if they're legacies,
Yeah.
meaning they're already a
Mhm.
member of an organization, they will be excited, right? But however, you want to know, like, what is the organization's name?
Mhm.
What do they do in the community? How does it connect with you
Mhm.
as a respective individual, right?
Mhm.
How much time will this take? I think that, and that's probably like one of my number ones as a
Do
parent.
do you think you have the capacity to take this
Yes,
on?
absolutely,
Because we can often see sometimes with our first year students, like,
without a doubt.
everything is so new and,
Mm-hmm.
you just haven't found, the boundaries, your
Yes,
capacity yet. And so,
yes.
I think
The
that's
time
really
one is
important to
huge.
ask. Like, yeah, like, well, how much time is this gonna take? Is that gonna take away
Mm-hmm.
from your studying?
Boom.
Like, things like that.
Exactly.
And so
Yes. So that time piece plays into a huge factor because when you're joining, right,
Mhm.
you have required educational sessions that you will have to go to in the evening. Also, I would sit down with the student and look at their national website and see what they have on their
Mhm.
national website, see what they're doing, okay? And then also look at what that chapter is doing.
Mhm.
Look at their reputation on campus. I think that's key as a parent. And then last but not least, I have two more. How much does it cost?
I was just about to ask, like,
Ooh,
are we talking about cost
how
now?
much?
Yes, because
Because it is a cost.
and not every org, has the same membership fees
Exactly.
and new member dues and stuff like that. So,
Exactly, right? As a parent, I can give you a range as an advisor.
mhm.
You're going to be spending it within $300 to $4,000, depending on the organization.
And that's a semester or a year?
That's a year,
Okay, a
right?
year.
And that's for a new member. Now, after they're a new member,
Mhm,
it goes down tremendously,
mhm.
right? But as a new member, it just depends on the organization. And I'm
Yeah.
going to keep saying that because the organizations will typically let them know how much the cost
Mhm,
is, which they should, to be transparent during an
mhm,
informational session.
mhm.
And that's where they find out information, right?
Yeah.
And then my last thing is, as a parent, I behoove you to directly speak with the advisor
Okay.
because that will also help you gain some information on not only who the advisor is, which is the
Mhm.
advisor is advising that chapter, advising them. They're a
And
knowledgeable resource.
and they're usually someone who is affiliated with
Correct.
campus here at UIC, like a faculty staff advisor.
So here at UIC, it's twofold. You have the faculty advisor,
Okay.
which they do work here, and they could either be a member of the organization or they
Or
may not
they're they're
be.
they're supporting the
Correct.
organization.
They're supporting the organization and they're really supporting them and guiding them from a UIC standpoint, right? From a student perspective and making sure they're doing what they need to do to grow and
Mhm.
graduate. And then the alumni and or the graduate advisor is a member of that respective organization,
Mhm.
and they were either elected and or appointed by the alumni or graduate chapter to lead this chapter to excellence from that sorority perspective, right?
Mhm.
And so that advisor will be there throughout the new member process. So that's why as parents, you get to know who that advisor is because then as a parent and as a family member, you can understand what they are about to actually do.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, I wanna know who my kid's hanging out with. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Boom.
kinda like they did, maybe if they were doing a sleepover, like, like, "Hey, I wanna talk to
Exactly.
that person's mom," beforehand.
Exactly.
And so I think those are really good pieces of advice. And
Yes.
so thank you so much,
Oh,
for
no, of
sharing
course.
for sharing those.
I'm a mom, so I completely understand.
Aw.
When my daughter, if she decides to join, I pray it's my sorority, but I will definitely be asking questions. I will be asking questions of my sorority, okay? Because
Yeah.
I'm a mom first.
Yeah. And families, there's nothing wrong,
At all.
with asking questions, and I would say, if you are concerned with, you know, I don't want a helicopter. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I really want to help, my student to start figuring this out.
Mhm.
Well, have your student ask the questions that you need the
Correct.
information to, like have them advocate, for
Correct.
themselves, as well. If you really want to put it,
Yes.
the ball back in their court. And
Yes.
so, but, where it sounds like, that if a family member contacts,
Mhm.
you or anyone within the fraternity and sorority community about
Mhm.
something, they're gonna be able to get some information.
Absolutely. You're going to get the information that you need. And then if we don't have it right there, you're going to hear back from us because our parents, we value you. We value your voice. And we want to make sure that we give you all of the information you need to understand not only about who we are, what we stand for, but to make sure that your student is safe.
Mhm.
We want to make sure that you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
Because as a parent, we worry.
Mhm.
As families, we worry.
Mhm.
And we don't want you to have to worry while they're here being involved at UIC. So that's what we're here for as staff,
Yeah.
to give you the resources that you need. This is what DR is doing with this podcast, which is absolutely amazing.
Aw, thank you, Lori. We really appreciate that. Lori, we're just about at time. And so we've talked about fraternity and sorority and how families can support their students in this, but in general, this is, I think, one of my favorite questions I get to ask all of our guests. And so just like, what advice would
Yes.
you want to share with families or any kind of final encouragements for them who are listening in as they're supporting students?
Yes. So, parents and families, what I will encourage you all to continue to do is to always show up and be a voice for your student, right? In whatever way, shape, or form that you can, because your support means a lot to them. Your support will get them to the finish
Even
line.
if they're not verbally saying or expressing
Exactly.
it, I
There you go.
want to reiterate,
In any way,
that
shape, or
point.
form.
Yes.
Any
Like,
way, shape, or form. It's so important because even though you may think your student don't see it or feel
mhm.
it, they really do.
They do. They really do. I'm someone who, I might not respond to, the text message that my mom or my father, puts in the family
Mm,
chat, but I do think about it on the train. You know what I
right?
mean? And I do think about them, and so that is, I would say just keep sending those little text messages, keep asking
Mhm.
questions,
Mhm.
keep showing up and advocating. And sorry, I
No,
jumped in
no, no,
front of
no,
you.
because you felt it, because
Yeah.
it's really true. It really, really is true. And then also as parents and families with your students, try to connect with them. I don't know if it's quarterly or once a week. I mean, whatever your cadence is,
Yeah.
but try to
Ooh,
connect
I
it.
like that.
th-
The cadence of your
Yeah,
communication,
correct.
like, okay.
It's really, really valuable for them to even like, when what I mean by making one-on-one time, I mean like if it's through FaceTime, Zoom, or
Mhm.
one-on-one and you sitting down for dinner or lunch or something, make that time
Yeah.
because you actually want to lay eyes on
Mhm.
them and
Yeah.
making sure that they're okay, right? And then you as a parent and family, be involved with the different wonderful things that new student and family programs have to offer our parents and families. They conduct several different opportunities for you to come and engage here on campus, off campus. You are a part of the UIC
Mhm.
community, right? And so we want you to be engaged and active in what we do here as well. And that's, again, I keep bringing it back to this pocket. This is something that DR is doing again to bring you and get you engaged in this
Mhm.
UIC, wonderful UIC community. And I empower you to do so. I
Yeah.
really do.
Thank you so much, Lori,
Of
for that.
course.
And if you have any questions or maybe, you're like, oh, what types of things, are we doing, for our families?
Yes.
You can always, go check our websites out. We have a
Yes.
whole family resources tab on the new student and family programs website that's got
Mm-hmm.
a lot of information that can help you support your students throughout their whole time here at UIC. And we are continually developing resources and getting folks
Yes.
like Lori involved in things like Flame Keepers, Family Weekend,
Mm-hmm.
orientation. We have a whole communication platform called the Flames Family Hub.
Yep.
And so, if you're not, involved with that, I encourage you, to get involved. And so you can just stay in the know about things at UIC.
It's so pivotal. And that's why with UIC FSL, please visit our website. It is fsl.uic.edu. And I'll say it again, fsl.uic.edu. and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And our handle is at UICFSL. Please follow us. I mean, reach out to me. I am very open. I have an open door policy, and we just want to make your experience excellent.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Thanks, Lori. And so, Flames families, this has been another episode of Flame Keepers, the podcast that supports UIC parents and families.
All
We
right.
hope you tune in for our next episode. And do not hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything. Families, we have an email address that is specifically for you, and that is famhelp@uic.edu, famhelp@uic.edu. And we hope to hear from you, and take care. Well, Flames families, that's going to wrap up another episode of Flame Keepers, the podcast that seeks to support the parents and families of UIC students. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions for us about anything that we've talked about today, please feel free to send us an email at famhelp@uic.edu. That's famhelp@uic.edu. Again, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of Flame Keepers and that you join us for our next one. Take care.